Well, the defending NBA champion Denver Nuggets have now trailed at halftime in 6 of their 7 playoff games this year, but nothing like the deficit they faced in Game 2 of their second-round matchup with the Minnesota Timberwolves, as the 26-point halftime hole Denver found themselves in was the largest for any defending champion since 1992, on the way to getting absolutely obliterated in Game 2 to fall into an insurmountable 0-2 hole now and going on the road to Minnesota. And there will officially be a new champion this season, as the Nuggets, who never really looked quite right against the Lakers, trailing in 69% of that series, have now been largely controlled for much of Game 1 of this series and then run right off the floor in Game 2. Trailing by as many as 33 points in a game that was a must-win, and the Timberwolves were without their defensive anchor Rudy Gobert, the soon-to-be 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, who missed this game for the birth of his first child. But it just didn't seem to matter for the Nuggets, who looked totally outmatched and outclassed in this series at every level, as the Timberwolves are just better and deeper and defend at supreme levels not seen in the likes of this NBA for years. And all credit to former Nuggets president of basketball operations Tim Connolly, responsible for building this Nuggets championship team a year ago, now holds that same position with the Timberwolves and will be responsible for ending this Nuggets team repeat bid. And the Nuggets bench, who averaged only 13 points per game against the Lakers in the last series, posted just 15 points in Game 1 against Minnesota and had only 10 points at the end of 3 quarters last night, all 10 coming via Justin Holiday, and the Wolves bench outscored the Nuggets 27-10 through 3 quarters. But the gigantic story in this one was the Timberwolves defense, who seemed to have the Nuggets number in the regular season, as Denver scored fewer than 100 points in only 8 games out of their 82-game regular season, with the Timberwolves delivering 2 of those defensive performances, including holding Denver to 89 points in one of them, which was their 3rd lowest scoring total of the year during the regular season. And in the regular season, Denver finished 0-8 in those 8 games where they failed to hit the 100-point mark, and they were just 7-17 in games where they didn't score at least 110 points. Needless to say, the Nuggets are offensively oriented, and they have hit their defensive kryptonite, as they have now scored under 100 points in 4 of their 6 meetings with Minnesota this year, and the 80 points last night is their new season low. And soon-to-be 3-time league MVP Nikola Jokic, for his part and his standards, has played outright lousy in this series, and frankly hasn't been quite himself in these entire playoffs. And heavy is the head that wears the crown. A player as decorated as him does deserve some criticism for the way this series has gone. But for their 7 games now in these 2024 playoffs, Jokic is averaging 27 points, 15 rebounds, 9.5 assists on 54% shooting from the field. Ultimately, he is the best player, and he will shoulder the lion's share of the criticism for this. But now Jokic, who has had an incredibly limited supporting cast for his entire career, as he is now 29 years old and in his 9th NBA season, and yet to ever play with a single All-Star for his entire career. In fact, only 2 players he has ever played with have ever made an All-Star team at any point of their entire careers, and that was Paul Millsap and DeAndre Jordan. But many have been raving about Jamal Murray since last season's playoff run and trying to paint him as some kind of a perennial all-star caliber guard who has been systematically snubbed for years. But Murray, who is now 27 himself and in his 8th year, has never made a single All-Star game or All-NBA selection. he is just a 17.5 point per game career scorer, a glorified third option who did play out of his mind in last season's title run. A run for him that started against these Timberwolves in last year's first round, where Murray averaged 27 points per game for that 5-game series, shooting 47% from the field and 42% from three. He has fallen drastically short of those levels in these playoffs. And Murray had just 8 points last night on 3 of 18 shooting, 2 assists, and 4 turnovers. And for his postseason now, in 7 games, Murray is averaging 20.4 points per game on 21.7 shots per game, and is shooting just 37.5% from the field in these playoffs and only 28.5% from three.
It's a complete crap.
Oh, and speaking of threes, the Nuggets entered last night's game 12th out of 16 playoff teams in three-point percentage, shooting just 32.5%, and it was more of the same last night, as the Nuggets again struggled from beyond the arc, shooting just 9 of 30. And Jamal Murray, who reached peak bum mode last night, was 0 of 4 himself. Ultimately, this is a make or miss league, and the Nuggets are struggling mightily to make shots at the moment, and a large part of that is credit to the best defense in the NBA all regular season and playoffs. As the old football adage goes, defense wins championships, and for the first time in a long time in the NBA, the Wolves have brought that mindset back.